Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first community conversation of Black History Month, centered around downtown campus in the Paramore area. My name is Natalie, and I am a student leader at Valencia College. I am here with Dr. Eugene Jones, who is the Executive Dean for the Valencia College downtown campus, Miss Elizabeth Thompson, who is the Director of Downtown Community Engagement for UCF Downtown and Valencia College, Tanika Bango Cooper, who is Director of Community Partnerships at Jones High School, and Reverend Dr. Robert Spooney, who is the pastor of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Institutional Church and the chair of the Paramore Community Engagement Council. We are honored to have you all here today to talk about Paramore, as well as the presence of Valencia College downtown. Before we get started, I would like to give a little background on Paramore for our viewers. Paramore is a part of downtown Orlando and was founded by Orlando's 14th mayor, James Paramore. And his intention for this part of the city was to house Black workers and residents. Roads like Division Avenue were the splitting point between the Black neighborhood of Paramore from the white neighborhoods. Later development of I-4 isolated the neighborhood from the business area of Orlando, as well as, in the process, destroying businesses, church buildings, and homes during the construction. There was a period of development and progress within Paramore during the late 1800s and early 1900s, notably led by Dr. William Monroe Wells. Dr. Wells built a hotel, currently museum, and a nightclub where members of the community could come there to interact and build community with each other. Unfortunately, laws and construction took a toll on this community. Churches, businesses, and homes were torn down to make way for roads. There is hope because organizations like the Paramore Community Engagement Council are trying to restore Paramore to a community that has access to healthcare, jobs, affordable housing, and education. So let's jump into the first question. Is there anything each of you would like to add about the history, whether that's some significant behind street names, more detail of the Wells Built Museum, anything like that?
I certainly will jump in and speak a bit about the Wells Built, currently museum, but formerly hotel, and really just kind of re-emphasize Dr. Wells, though he was a physician, he was also very community minded and wanted to offer things that were not there or present for African Americans at the time. And so he built that hotel because there was no other hotel in Orlando in the 1920s that would rent rooms to African Americans. And what I always like to go back to is the concept of seeing a need and filling that need, even in the face of obstacles. Because, of course, at that time, he could not get a commercial loan, he could not get commercial financing. So he had to finance the construction of that building, that two-story building, all himself. He did the same for the South Street Casino, which was right next door. And it was, while extraordinary, he wasn't alone. A lot of times the buildings, the churches, the hotels, the dry cleaners, they were built by the people in the community. And so what I always want to emphasize is that Paramore was a very thriving and interconnected community, because a lot of times what was good for one person in that community was good for the whole of the community. And if anything, I would like us to understand and get back to that understanding, is that a lot of times what's good for one of us can be good for the entirety of our community. And so I definitely wanted to say that. And then if you extend, you were speaking about street names, if you extend into kind of the Carver Shores, Washington Shores, Richmond Heights area, there are over 100 names streets named for African Americans. You have Bethune Drive, you have Cassius Way, and these were named for prominent, notable African Americans. And so you have a sense of pride and a sense of belonging, and certainly a sense of history for this community.
I'll just briefly add that at the actual campus, for anyone who has an opportunity to come down to the Valencia downtown UCF campus, we have a room called the Paramore room. And on the actual windows of that room is a mural that gives respect and homage to the history of Paramore and some of the significant individuals and some of the significant events that happen in that area. As Elizabeth said, it has an extremely rich history, and it is good for individuals to understand that what they see now in Paramore is not always the way Paramore has been. And it speaks to the future that we hope to be a part of as we are part of the re-energizing of the Paramore area.
Agree. I also like to add from the perspective of Jones High School, or just a historical perspective as well, that as Dr. Jones has stated, that what Paramore looks like now is not what it has always been. Specifically, when we talk about leaders of the community being within the community. So Paramore has a rich history of lawyers, doctors, teachers, and so it is built not on just what appears to be poverty at this time, but the rich history and foundation of how it was established goes back to, leaders and educators taking pride and ownership of their community, and lifting it up. As Elizabeth said, that it's not just one person that benefits, but the community benefits. And I think when we think about, moving a community or moving the city forward, we have to do it together in order to really be a thriving community.
It's also significant to note that going back to the naming of the streets, on the west side of Orange Blossom Trail, in the area where Ms. Thompson spoke of the streets being named after prominent African American individuals. Well, on the Paramore area, on the east side of Orange Blossom Trail, many of the streets were named after Caucasian politicians who, local and national, for instance, our church is on Washington Street, then there's Jefferson Street, and then there's Terry Avenue, and then there is Randall, and all of these individuals played important roles in the growth and expansion of Orlando back in the 1800s. Actually, Paramore was actually plotted or platted, if you will. The original plat plan shows the streets starting to be named around 1880. And so, which is just happens to be the year that our church was founded. So I know that information. So, and so what we've had is actually a proliferation or a movement or in the understanding of contributions on the east side, contributions from individuals who made significant contributions to the well-being of African Americans during the years in the building of Orlando. And then further on, you find streets being named after African Americans who have had a chance to participate or get recognition for their contribution to not only the growth of America, but also the growth of the Orlando area as well. And so, as is anything, there's been a development or an evolution, if you will, in time of thinking to show the diversity and inclusiveness of this community.
Dr. Spooney, would you like to just give a real quick background on Division Street?
Well, there are several thoughts on Division Street. I was born and raised in Orlando, and so I remember when there were individuals living east of Division Street, and even though individuals say that that was the demarcation or dividing line, that's not necessarily true. I don't know why they called it Division Street. It's just named Division Street, but it does not divide where African Americans or whites live in Orlando. When you drive, if you drive down Robinson Avenue or Washington Avenue and you cross over Orange Blossom Trail, excuse me, you cross over Orange Avenue going east, you're going to run into an area what's called Reeves Terrace. It is a housing development. That was all African American owned before me, but just it was only recent that it became proliferated with from it was not an ethnic cleansing, but this just changed with the demographics of the population. So this city is really so Division Street really is, although they speak of that, to the best of my knowledge, it never was a street. I think it just was the history and the thought pattern that came out of people's minds. But I do recall when individuals lived and owned property east of Orange Avenue, a lot of property, and actually it was, and they sold it because it would always get flooded when it rained, and so they sold it to the city, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I hope that answers your question on in that, and I'm sure Miss Bango, who is also a historian, if you will, might have Miss Bango Cooper might agree that with what I just said, because I know she knows the history as well as Miss Thompson as well.
Yeah, so I think that you made a great point, and I don't want to belabor on it, but you made a great point in reference to um, the what people perceive, or once it doesn't take very long for a rumor to start and for it to catch fire and appear as if it sounds good, so we'll keep on repeating it. But also about people's perceptions of particular areas and particular neighborhoods. So that goes into even when we talk about Paramore and what it means, and Paramore encompasses so many different things and so many different neighborhoods and so many different types of people and so many different types of culture. But when you say it initially, there's a, not to say a stigma, but there's certain perceptions that people have. And so I think that's a great point when we talk about division and just history, and enlightening what history really means, and telling the story about how things really are is very important. So I think that even having this discussion for students to be able to recognize and perceive that, hey, if you're going to be on the downtown campus in this area, learn about it and know the history and know what it means and the significance of what is trying to what we're trying to do here. I also like to, kind of go back on something that was said earlier in reference to Elizabeth made mention of Dr. Wells donating his land and funding what was a need in the community, where housing was a need, or being able to have people come into a neighborhood and have not housing, but be able to stay and not be able to rent other hotels. And so when we talk about Jones High School and throwing Jones High School into this conversation, Jones, the property and the land and the name comes because someone donated the land for the school. So when we talk about the community stepping in and meeting the community need, we are a year we are a little over a year in being a community partnership school in name. However, Jones has always been a neighborhood school. It was established as a neighborhood school. It started out because there was nowhere for African Americans to be educated. And so we started out as a need, and the community stepped in and donated the land. And it has always been established as a neighborhood school. So in name, now we are a community partnership school, but the community has always supported the needs of its own and its community. And so I think it's important that when we talk about, the future of Paramore, the future of downtown and what it means to have a college on campus or in a neighborhood where students have access to seeing, different images as they get up and they walk to school, and, they see others walking to school, and they see people going to work and walking and, moving around in their community, what that means for them and their ability to, grow up knowing that all things are possible because they can see it as tangible. It's right there. So I think that that is important when we tie in, the vision of what a downtown campus is and looking at cradle to career opportunities for the residents of that community.
Natalie, I think you might be on mute or.
Can you hear me now? Okay, I'm so sorry for the audio problems. I will try and speak a little bit louder. While we are on the topic of education, I would like to focus on that because that is one of the, can you hear me as well right now? Okay, that is one of the pillars that I saw was education. So I was wondering, what are some of those educational goals from the council? What do those look like in the K through 8 in high school? And then also, if you can go into this, what's the connection right now between the high school and Valencia College? What does that relationship look like? Are there a lot of dual enrollment students? Is that a opportunity for them?
I think Dr. Jones could probably speak relative to statistics and things of that sort relative to dual enrollment. But before he does, relative to what the community views the school and this concept, there is a saying from the 100 Black Men, which says, what they see is what they be. And basically it's abbreviated, what they see is what they will become. We break it down to what they see is what they be. And so Ms. Cooper made the comment of what the community would see as a result of individuals walking to school or going to school, and how that would increase and enhance their self-esteem and things of that sort. I want to say that that is one of the greatest contributors to the improvement of self-esteem, is to see opportunities that might be available, that you can go for it. And with the campuses being plotted, if you will, in the middle of an area where education is needed, I think it's a great concept. And we'll see, as Dr. Jones probably will talk, and even Ms. Cooper will speak relative to dual enrollment and things of that sort. You'll see how people are buying into this concept and to this idea and to this partnership. Now, the Paramore Community Engagement Council, even with our 5 pillars, our primary goal is to ensure that the community takes advantage of all of the resources from the downtown campus, Valencia side, UCF side, really doesn't matter, and to be a catalyst, if you will, for the dissemination of the information and for making sure that individuals act on what's been sent to them. And so that's what we do. And we do have those pillars. education is being one. And so it's part of I say a divine plan to include everyone, or give everyone an opportunity to improve their quality of life through education. With that, I'll turn it over to either of these esteemed academia.
Well, yes, sir, you did a wonderful job with that. So I think the basis of the question was the campus and involvement with education, with the community. So as Reverend Spooney was saying, the Paramore Community Engagement Council has 5 pillars, and one of those pillars is education. So through that venue, we work very close with the council to make them aware of what educational possibilities the campus does provide. Just real quickly, the downtown campus, well, I'll back up even further and just quickly say that whenever Valencia goes into an area, the goal is to increase access to education and to also increase the highest level of education obtainment in that area. So moving more people to completing high school and also moving more of those high school graduates to come and take, post-secondary education, and the people who are taking post-secondary education, hopefully that will either be, a short-term skill trade or a 2-year degree. And Valencia has in and of itself 4-year degrees already, but downtown we have this unique opportunity that students who are interested can go seamlessly into UCF and continue their education all the way through to graduate school, and to a PhD, all within the confines of that campus. So we consider ourselves to be kind of a educational hub where no matter what your particular goals are, if it's just to, again, not seek college credit, but to get short-term training, we have that. We have an accelerated skills training center on the campus. If your goal is to begin your college career, we have that opportunity coming straight into Valencia. If your goal is, again, a bachelor's degree, master's degree, or a doctorate degree, with our partnership with UCF, all of that is possible. And then the other part of the question is the outreach to the K through 12 system. We do regular work with the A school. Principal Ivory is a member of the council, so I have an opportunity to interact with her on a regular basis. I'm also on the board of the A school, the community board of the A school, so I have a chance to work with those partners, and also Ms. Thompson is on that board also. So we talk about what can Valencia be as a value add to the functioning of the A school. We have our college faculty, the professors, at the downtown campus already engaging with the faculty at the A school to come up with activities for the kids there. We have our students working, our college students working with the A school college students. So as we all know, the COVID put a, kind of the brakes on a lot of things, but we have many things that are in the hopper. 2 years ago, we had something called Valencia Weeks, and Miss Bango was a part of that, where we went out to the actual high school. So we went out to Jones High School, we went out to work with the students and engage with them. So our goal, if you look at the long term, we always say that the way you will measure the success of the downtown campus is what happens to that first grader who's in the A school right now. Does that first grader automatically know, without even thinking, of course I'm going to college? 10 years from now, 11 years from now, does that first grader come to Valencia and pursue whatever their higher educational goals are? And to break down, well, not break down, but I guess what I would say is expand the mindset that, of course, I can go to college. I've been working with college professors my whole career. They've been in my classroom. I've been on the campus. I'm not afraid of college algebra. I've met the college algebra teacher, or I'm, whatever the situation happens to be. So we want to put that mindset into our children very, very early on so that they know that this is all a possibility.
Yeah, and so to piggyback on that and bring the high school students into that, I think again what we've been able to do in spite of the pandemic, because I will tell you that the pandemic has really put a damper in, how we connect with our students. Majority of our students are virtual students. So this year we started out with less than 200 students on campus that had elected to attend face-to-face classes. Right now, we're in the third quarter of the school year, and we still have less than half of our students that are physically on campus. And so what that is, or what that tells you, is that number one, our students come from very diverse backgrounds and populations, and sometimes they live in multi-generational housing. So health concerns are a really big issue when we talk about exposing students being exposed to, potentially being exposed to COVID, but also being exposed and taking it back home, to a loved one or elder or someone that struggles with health issues. So making connection with our students has been extremely difficult. We do work hand in hand with Valencia's transition team. And so we've been able to host or have some virtual sessions with some of our students. I will tell you that last year we had the highest FAFSA completion rate in the county. So we were number one in that. This year it looks a little different because our engagement has changed, but we are working hard to continue those partnerships to make the process a little bit easier, but to also put our students in direct contact with mentors that will help guide them through the college process. Because it's one thing to go to college and enter college, but again, if you don't have the support system set up to continue to allow you the services that you may need to continue through college, then the work that we've done previously may be in vain. So we don't want to be able to put all of this investment and this work into getting you there and not getting you across the line. So we work as a committee to have those conversations and to pair our recent graduates, so our 2019 or 2020 graduates that are at Valencia and that are at UCF, are paired with mentors to not only support them, but help get them across the finish line. And I think that's important. We want to make sure that when we invest these resources, that we see it through, and that we're able to get students, in a place where they are self-sufficient, but also teach them to be advocates for themselves and to advocate for, the services that they need, and to, speak up when, hey, I'm struggling here, where do I go to get some assistance? And we want to do that beforehand, and not, once the semester comes out and there's really not much we can do. So we really try to enforce the conversations that say, hey, listen, if you have something going on, reach out to us and let us know, so that we can assist you on the front end and not necessarily have to come in through the back end to do so.
And I was just going to add much to each of the panelists' point. Through the downtown campus, through the relationships, there really is a wraparound of support. And on any given day, at any given time, I know that I have the confidence. I can call Tanika and ask about a student, or I can call Dr. Spooney, and all iterations thereof, Dr. Spooney and Tanika talk, and then Dr. Jones. And because as a community, really, we are invested in realizing the best educational options for the youth in the community and the adults. A lot of times we talk about the youth, and that's very important. But as we've seen, even through this pandemic, there are a lot of opportunities as people are transitioning from one job to another, one skill set to another. Those are courses and opportunities that exist in this Paramore downtown area. And we want everyone to know it, and we want everyone to participate in it, because it is our goal to holistically provide opportunities and resource for anyone who wants to avail themselves.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, you know, what we do, we are a high school. However, we service the whole family. So the point when it comes to relationship, and it goes back to the founding of, you know, the Paramore community, that we are here to support the entire community. And so the great thing about it is that we all work together. So I'm speaking with, you know, Shannon, you know, on a daily basis. The community, because they know of certain people being, you know, in certain, they will text, they will call. When they have an issue, they have no issue with texting your personal phone. They don't care what time of night it is or what time of morning it is. They will text and they will call about their issue. They will email me, they will email Principal Kirby. They have no issue with, you know, reaching out to the people that they know, you know, will do their very best to get things done for them. So that is the great thing about relationship and community, that, you know, when you put out a caller and ask, hey, I have this issue, I'm not sure if I'm able to, if you're able to assist. And then I make a call, hey, I had someone call and X, Y, and Z. Will you point me in the right direction or let me know what you can do? Additionally, packing resources. So, you know, hey, I have this. What do you have? I have a family in need of this. This is what we're able to do. What are you able to do? I will tell you that, you know, because we're a community partnership school, we have resources that are available as it relates to mental health and counseling. And I bring that in because we are in a pandemic, and, you know, those are issues that, you know, that may have been underlining beforehand, but the pandemic has exposed certain things. And so now we have students, we have teachers, we have families that are being proactive about that and reaching out. So we've been able to partner with UCF to get funding, you know, to support some services that CHS has had, to be able to provide some on-site services. And that's what partnership is about. That's what, you know, leadership is about. That's what collaboration is about. That's what supporting the community means. That, you know, if there's a need, we're able to connect and fill the gap, and not necessarily what we think it is, because I think this is a great point of the council, that the council was put in place not to tell the community what they need or what they think the avenue to success looks like, but going to the community and saying, hey, listen, what is it that you need and how we can be a support, so that it gives them a voice and an opportunity to, number one, be an advocate for themselves, but also to map out the direction of what they want their community to look like. And I think that is so important, you know, when we talk about entities coming into a neighborhood and not necessarily directing the ship as to what their personal views of what it looks like to move a neighborhood forward, but asking the neighborhood to get involved in the future of where they are, so that not only they can move with the growth in the growth of the neighborhood, but they can be a part of it. And so I think that's very important. I don't want to cover that up, because it is definitely a community effort, when we look at transforming what Paramore looks like.
Thank you for that. That's really interesting. And we're about halfway through the conversation, and just hearing y'all's perspective on this. Doesn't matter how much research I've done, hearing what's actually people who are in the community and seeing what's like, and you guys know the need more than any reporter who just steps in from a different area. So thank you. The council's been mentioned a few times. I have tried to find the members of the council, but I couldn't find a list. So if you guys could possibly go into maybe the founding of the council, and who's a part of that, but then also how it is in the community, and some goals that it has reached and what the future of the council looks like.
Dr. Spooney, as the chair, you probably are uniquely equipped to answer that.
I'll give it a whirl. I was looking at you to answer it. When we and I guess there were many aspects of that question. As I mentioned earlier, the council was founded, and as Bango Cooper has alluded to, we found it to be a catalyst, if you will, in the community. Also, a sounding board from the community back to the university and to the college, if you will. The makeup of the council consists of community um, individuals who live in the community, whether they're leaders or not, but residents, that's the word, shareholders. The makeup is really specific. There's so many, there's a specific number. Of that number, a certain percentage have to be residents, a certain percentage have to be, could be business owners, and then you have the partners, which involve Valencia, UCF, and the city of Orlando, which basically provided the land for the campus to be built on, and then the two colleges or university and college provide the infrastructure, if you will. And so these are private citizens who are interested in the well-being of their community. And so they volunteer their time to do whatever it is. Our goal really, our mission is very simple, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it is to, in every one of these pillars, it is to improve the quality of life in the community, whether it's from a health standpoint, a housing standpoint, an education standpoint, a job standpoint, or a safety standpoint. And what we do is channel the resources between the college and the university toward the neighborhood, if you will, or the community, based on what the community requires. What have we done? What kind of projects that we've had? We've had many. We don't raise up flags and toot our horns about what we do. I am an individual who just believes in doing what needs to be done. Yep. And don't worry about the accolades. But we have been very involved in testing individuals for COVID with this recent pandemic. We have been involved in feeding tremendously, pulling in resources to provide substances, food and substance for individuals who have lost jobs or been furloughed. I can't tell you how many people we have provided food for through our what we call them drive-bys. We've had a health and wellness workshop slash I won't say convention, but activity, wherein we spoke about it was a weekend event in Paramore where we touched on mental illness and just a plethora of health issues, brought resources to the community so it could be utilized. We have forged relationships with the Workforce Central Florida, which is now called Career Source, if you will, of which I actually was on the board of directors under the appointment of one of the governors. And so there's a great relationship in that individuals have opportunities for employment and training through Career Source. And so we're just a catalyst. When I grew up as a baseball player and lover of the game of baseball, there was a gentleman by the name Reggie Jackson, who played for the New York Yankees. And in Reggie Jackson's basically catchphrase was, "I'm just the straw that stirs the milkshake." The Yankees won 2 or 3 championships during his tenure. He was the leading player, and he would say, "I'm just the straw that stirs the milkshake." And that's what the Paramore Community Engagement Council is. We are a straw, and we stir the milkshake of the community to make sure that everything that's needed is at least provided or an opportunity. So that's just a quick overview. I could go on and on, but we only have an hour, and therefore I'm going to back off and let someone else. But that's a nutshell of what we do in our makeup. And certainly, the council was the brain. Came out of the thought process of these two institutions of higher institutions of learning, and the leadership at that time. They were cognizant of the fact that change sometimes brings resistance. How can we come into the community to show that we are indeed concerned about the well-being and welfare of the community? I know how we can do it. Let's make sure that the community is involved in not necessarily, well, the planning, if you will, to a degree, of the campus, and even the class structures and things of that sort. And so that's the brainchild. It was formed out of that type of thought process, and the evolution has been natural. And that now we are on the ground, boots on the ground, and we're trying to make sure that all 5 of those areas, which are pertinent to the success of the college and the university, the downtown campus, also extend into the community as well. Because the community needs to be safe, needs to be healthy. The students on the campus need to be safe. They need to be considered by health. They need to, education. We have, as we've spoken about education, we kind of downplayed the significance of the ACE school as a feeder school to Jones High. We didn't downplay it, we kind of stepped over it. They're a feeder school, but before the ACE is K-8, and there is a kindergarten there, the Rosen Center, so basically the concept is you start kindergarten and you can matriculate to middle school and matriculate to high school, and then you got a clear path to matriculate through one of these, through this downtown campus. And if there's a situation involving cost, and you might be qualified, and you got all the expertise, and there's no problem, you can deal with the teachers. Here's the deal, in the words of Jake from State Farm. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you start, the Rosen Center will provide scholarship for anyone who goes from kindergarten through 12th grade. When you graduate, you will have a full 4-year scholarship to any one of these institutions. And so it is all built around making sure that everybody gets a chance to play.
And I'm so glad that you landed where you landed, Dr. Spooney, because I think that that is very significant when we talk about cradle to career. If we reach, once they get here, if we haven't poured services into the, and when I mean once they get here, what if we wait till they are 9th graders, if we wait till they are, seniors in high school, then there's so much of a gap that we have to fill that we're only realistically able to do so much. So if we continue to pour resources in, to closing the gap, to really being able to close the gap. And I think that even when we look at the totality of this project and measurable outcomes, that, it's not going to be the fruits of our labor. And I don't want to say this in a negative way, but won't necessarily be in the next few years. When we, Dr. Jones made a great point earlier. It's that first grader, it's that preschooler, when they reach it to come to their senior year, then we will know, all of the fruits, and we can sit back and say, oh my God, it worked, because we invested in the youngest person in this community, and we followed them through, and we didn't drop the ball. We didn't drop the ball once they got to middle school. We didn't drop the ball once they got to high school and say, hey, you know what, you're on your own. No, we carry them all the way through. And we don't say, hey, once you get to, your senior year, hey, you're on your own. We're going to drop the ball. We're going to carry them all the way through, so that, number one, everything that we invested in them will allow them to be self-sufficient, where they'll be able to pick up the ball, not only for themselves, but they'll be able to pick up the ball for themselves, for their family, for their community, and recycle that back around. One thing that came about earlier on, and even in the development of the council, is that, when people finally make it, it means moving out of their community. Hey, you know what? I went and got my degree. You know what? The one thing that I want to do is I don't want to ever come back. And that's not what we want to create. We want to be able to create, pour into a community that allows for its residents and its children to grow up and say, not only do I not want to leave, I want to go to college at the downtown campus and be a part of the growth that's taking place, but I want to come back and I want to stay. So, it's not looked at as a negative thing to say, you know what, I moved out, I made it, and I moved out. So I'm living, on, the east side, or I'm moving out to a different community, and all of the resources that were poured into me, I now take to another community. No, we're creating an environment, or what the goal of this is, or one of the goals, and I don't want to speak out of term, is that, not only do students want to, stay and go to college and matriculate here, but they want to live here and they want to raise their family. And so I think that is, one of the not to say overarching, but one of the residual effects of all of the work that we're doing here, that, we definitely change the mindset of the residents, and pour some hope and desire, to make the community better long term.
I think you are absolutely, if I can just comment on this, everything is cyclical, okay? There was a cycle when neighborhood schooling basically was the teachers lived in the neighborhood.
Yes.
The stores were in the neighborhood. Yes. You grew up in the neighborhood, and therefore it was a community. Yes. Not only a residential community, but it was an entire community. And that concept falls in place with this downtown campus concept, from K through 12, from the cradle through whatever that phrase you use, Ms. Cooper. I like that.
Cradle to career.
Cradle to career. I like that.
It might have been somebody on the other team. Don't give me credit for that, because I don't want you to say that.
Okay, but it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect from that standpoint. So it's almost like we've done this. We stopped doing it in the 80s, and we started expanding, and urban renewal came in, and
segregation came in.
People started desegregation. People started moving. People started moving out from and now we're coming back to that. Okay, and that even tends to speak of Paramore's economic. Paramore used to be an economic engine of an unbelievable magnitude. But in it, if you were to drive down Church Street, there were stores and restaurants. And I'll tell you, I was born on Bentley Street, but I grew up on Doby Street in West Orlando. But I don't recall going downtown regularly until I was in college, because everything was in the community. Now, how did that come about? Well, that actually came about with the proliferation of big malls and stores and all of that type of stuff. And so, but now we're going, everything is going back, if you will, with technology, with this pandemic. Everything is being a little bit more localized. And here we are. Everything is cyclical. We're coming back to where we used to be, with more knowledge on how to make what we used to have work even better from what we experienced. And that's what we're seeing. It's almost like the vision of the visionaries of the downtown campus were spot on in seeing that. Okay, Dr. Jones, I see you wiggling. Come on.
No, I'm fine, Dr. Spooney. I'm just getting comfortable in the seat. But I'll just say real quickly to Dr. Spooney's point, and Tanika mentioned also, one of the things when Valencia decided in partnership with UCF to come to the community, there was a thoughtful reflection on what had happened in other urban centers when a university or a college had moved in. And what we found is that in the vast majority of cases, the education and the income gap widened. It got worse when a college or a university moved in. And that was because, of course, the people who already had a mindset or the means to go to college quickly took advantage of that, and they were able to accelerate their position. But the individuals who had not had a history, a family history, or a generational history about how you use college as an economic engine or a way to elevate yourself did not take advantage. So the resources that were brought in actually pushed them further to the other end of the spectrum. So with those types of studies, it was very intentional as we read the results of these studies that all of those education institutions say where we missed it is that we waited to get all fully formed and then try to figure out how to engage the community. But it was too late because we were actually the agents of creating what we came down to eliminate. And so Valencia and UCF intentionally said, we're not going to make that mistake from the very beginning. Before we open our doors, we're going to partner with the community. And that's what we done from day one. Before classes ever opened, we were holding charrettes with community leaders and residents and say, you know, help us think through this together. How do you see this education and economic engine coming downtown? How can it be a part of moving the community back to the glory days and even further? And so that's the idea and the purpose of partnering with the community to create the council, to say that together we will vision how you would like to see the community evolve and prosper.
Well, thank you for all these answers in this discussion. We are short on time, so I'm just going to ask one more question. I do want to say thank you again for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be a part of this conversation. My last question is, what does the future of Valencia and UCF look like in relation to the Paramore area?
Well, we are actually so excited. I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's so many cautionary tales out there. But when you heard Reverend Spooney talk about what we have been able to accomplish, and when I think about the campus, we really haven't had an opportunity to really engage in a full year on the ground yet. Our first semester was the fall of 19, and during that semester there was a hurricane. And then when we came back in the spring of 20, we ran into the pandemic. So all the things that you heard before was in spite of all of the adversity that surrounded. So we are sky high with our thoughts about what the future are. The re-engagement in a much more aggressive way with the council. The Reverend Spooney and Elizabeth could talk to you all day about all the plans we've done with the council and making sure that it has the right resources. All the educational interactions that we have planned with ACE and with the high schools that we have. So we have a queue of activities that we have not yet begun to process. And so we're just so excited about that. And I'll pause and let Elizabeth and Reverend Spooney speak to that issue also, or that topic, I should say.
I was just gonna say what my goal is always that the campus be of the community and not just in the community. We want to be a neighbor. We want to be looked at as a ready resource, meaning no hesitation. If there are things you need, if there are things you want, you understand that the Valencia College UCF downtown campus can provide those things. And that is to our community partners, the high schools, the OCPS ACE school, but also to nonprofit organizations, to individuals, to the business owners, employees. There are a lot of things and a lot of resources that the campus can provide, and that we are eager and wanting to provide so that we can truly be of the community and not just in the community. Dr. Spooney, you're muted.
My apologies. Let me add to this, to what you both said, is that there has been, I call the residual effect. And the residual effect is the advantages that will come to the community that's inherent to the technology and things of that sort that's going to come to the area as a result of the campus. I've already seen that. The digital divide is a real thing. However, right now, Paramore is getting fiber laid in the main thoroughfares as a result of trying to get broadband access to the university. That fiber is going to benefit all of the community, if you will, because now many of those individuals will have access where we don't have that type of technology running to their houses, and they're using phones and things of that sort, as opposed to having desktops and whatnot that can use the broadband services provided by these technology. So when you talk about the future, man, it looks very bright, and I'm glad that we're moving forward in that respect that we are.
Okay, well, if no one has anything else to add, I'm just going to say thank you so much. Does anyone have a few last things to add?
Well, I just want to say thank you for inviting us to be a part of the panel. It was certainly a wonderful occasion. I always feel honored to be among the greats that are here on the panel today.
It was so nice meeting everyone, even if it is just through a computer screen. And once again, I'm sorry about my audio from earlier on, but if we are all good and no one has anything else to add, I will release you to your very busy days, and just thank you again so much for taking time out of your day, and have a wonderful rest of your